Hello everyone. In this lecture, we'll study what is closed loop control system. So a system in which the controlling action or the input, it is somehow dependent on the output or changes in the output. It is called as a closed loop control system. That is, the input, it depends upon the output or the changes in output or some part of the output. That is called as the closed loop control system. Now, to have the dependence of the input on the output, such a system uses the feedback property. So this feedback property of the system, it is a property by which it will permit the output to be compared with the reference input in order to generate the error signal based on which the appropriate controlling action can be decided. So what the feedback property does? So it will compare the output with the reference input and it will generate the error signal. Okay, so that depending on the error signal, appropriate controlling action can be decided. So here the output or the part of the output is fed back to the input for comparison with the reference input. And the reference input, it is generated by the reference transducer. Now here you can see the representation of a closed loop control system, where R of t, it is the reference input. This R of t is the reference input, B of t is the feedback signal, E of t is the error signal, and here M of t, it is the modulating signal, and C of t is the controlled output. Now, here we are giving the command input. As we all know that it is not possible in all the systems that available signal, it can be applied as it is to the system. Depending upon the nature of the controller and the plant, it is required to reduce it or amplify it or change its nature, making it discrete from the continuous type of signal, etc. And this changed input as per the requirement, it is called as the reference input, which will get by giving the command input as input to the reference transducer. Okay, so the main excitation to the system, it is called as the command input. Whatever input we are giving, it is called as the command input, which is then applied to the reference transducer to generate the reference input. Okay, now the part of the output which is to be decided by the feedback element, it is fed back to the reference input here, and the signal which is output of the feedback element, it is called as the feedback signal B of t. Okay, here the part of the output is given as input to the feedback element, which will generate the feedback signal B of t. Now this reference input and the feedback signal, these are compared with each other, which will give the error signal E of t, which is nothing but R of t plus or minus B of t. Now here we are using two signs, that is, one is plus and another is minus. Now whenever the feedback is positive, the systems are called as positive feedback systems, and if you use negative sign here at the feedback, then these are called as the negative feedback signals, system. And this error signal, it is then modified by the controller here, okay, by the controller, and this controller decides the proportional manipulated signal for the process to be controlled. This M of t is manipulated signal, it is not modulated signal. I'm sorry, I have told it as modulated signal, but it is the manipulated signal which is generated by the controller, and this is used for the process to be controlled. Now the manipulation is such that the error should approach to 0, and this signal, it then actuates the actual system, that is this system process to be controlled, and it will produce an controlled output. Now as the output is controlled one, because of which it is called as the controlled output. Okay, so this path, it is called as a forward path. Okay, this one from the input to the output, and from the output to this error detector, it is called as the feedback path. Fine. Now these are some of the advantages of the closed loop system. First is with respect to the accuracy. The accuracy of such system is always very high because the controller modifies and manipulates the actuating signal such that the error in the system is zero. And here it will sense the environmental changes as well as the internal disturbances, and accordingly it will modify the error. And in such type of systems you have reduced non-linearities and distortions. And last is here the bandwidth is very high because the operating frequency zone for such system is very high. Coming to the disadvantages, such systems are complicated and time consuming from the design point of view, and hence these are very costly. And because here we are using a feedback path or the feedback element, this system tries to correct the error from time to time, and the tendency to overcorrect the error, it may cause to oscillations without bound in the system. Hence, such type of systems has to be designed taking into consideration the problems of instability due to the feedback. And hence the stability problems are severe, and these must be taken care of while designing the system. So because of the feedback element or the feedback property which tries to correct the error, the system becomes time consuming. So these are two disadvantages of the closed loop control system. Thank you.